Welcome back. FBI Director Christopher Wray revealing new details on the assassination attempt on former President Trump during his testimony on Capitol Hill yesterday. Wray admitted that the gunman was not on the FBI's radar before the shooting. He also said that the gunman had been researching the JFK assassination earlier in the day and then flew a drone near the rally site 2 hours before he shot former President Trump. Last night, the House voted unanimously to create a bipartisan task force to investigate the assassination attempt. And today, the new acting director of the Secret Service is scheduled to testify before 3 Senate committees after former Secret Service Director Cheatle resigned on Tuesday. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer putting out this statement. The Oversight Committee's hearing resulted in Director Cheatle's resignation, and there will be more accountability to come. While Director Cheatle's resignation is a step toward accountability, we need a full review of how these security failures happened so that we can prevent them going forward. Joining me now is the man himself, Kentucky Congressman and the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Good morning, Maria.
What is the most stunning takeaways from your investigation into that epic security failure in an assassination of the former president?
Well, first of all, that it even happened, that a shooter was allowed on the roof, that people saw the shooter climbing on the roof, that people were alerting the local authorities that a person with a gun was crawling on the roof, and yet nothing was done about it, and the shooter was allowed 8 shots before he was terminated. But secondly was the fact that when I subpoenaed Director Cheatle, she had an opportunity to prepare for that hearing for 6 days. It was 9 days after the shooting, and yet she did nothing to instill confidence into anyone in America that that problem was resolved, that it wouldn't happen again. I mean, I think Americans who watched that hearing concluded that they have less confidence in the Secret Service after Director Cheatle's testimony than they did prior to her testimony.
There was another investigation underway in the Senate. Ron Johnson joined me on Sunday and was surprised that a person from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms went up to the roof, and the photos of the dead gunman were sent to ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Is that customary that ATF would be involved?
No, it's not customary, and one of the members of our committee asked Director Cheatle that exact question, why was an ATF agent on the roof, and she acted like she didn't know anything about it. And, Maria, she may not have known anything about it. It goes back to the age-old question we've had over the past 3 years of every agency in the Biden administration, who's actually calling the shots. We know Joe Biden hasn't been calling the shots from the White House, and I didn't leave with the impression that Kimberly Cheatle knew a whole lot about what was going on in the Secret Service, and that's a problem. And I say that, Maria, because we've spoken with several whistleblowers, several people from the Secret Service who have come forward to talk to us, my staff, myself, members of the committee, as well as former Secret Service agents. And they all say the same thing. There's a lack of training. There's a lack of confidence in leadership, that people are promoted over the last 3 years because of things like race and gender as opposed to merit. And that's a problem. That's a problem with the Secret Service. It's a problem with a lot of agencies in the Biden administration.
The other issue that came out of the Senate investigation was that the Secret Service did not attend the security briefing on the day of the attack, and they weren't there at 9 a.m. when the locals were meeting, and that was according to the briefing provided by the local SWAT and sniper teams. So was this just incompetence, or was this something more?
I think it's incompetence, and I think it's been building. I think this incompetence has been building for the last 3 years. Again, we don't believe the Secret Service has been properly training their staff. We don't believe that the Secret Service has the right type of communication protocol. They're depending too much on local law enforcement, but then they're not communicating with local law enforcement. Okay. We asked for the transcript of communication between local law enforcement and the Secret Service because they tipped off local law enforcement the shooter was on the roof. I wonder if the Secret Service even knew that. They have refused to turn over the transcript. I think this new commission will subpoena that transcript on day one.
Let me move on to the address last night, Mr. Chairman, because President Biden did not mention his health at all while addressing the decision to drop out of the race last night. The White House is insisting that his health has nothing to do with the decision to drop out of the 2024 race. FBI Director Christopher Wray was asked if he's ever witnessed Biden's decline in meetings with the president during his testimony yesterday. Here's what he said.
In my interactions, in my role, all my interactions with the current president have been completely professional. I have briefed the president, and as I said, those briefings have all been uneventful and unremarkable.
So what are your thoughts? The comments from Wray prompted former President Trump to call for his resignation for lying to Congress. Trump wrote this on Truth Social. If Wray cannot see Biden as cognitively and physically challenged, he can't run the FBI. Trump also called out Wray during his rally in Charlotte, North Carolina last night. Here's what he said.
The head of the FBI was, you know that, right? He was in front of Congress today, and one of the great congressmen asked him a question. Have you ever noticed in all your meetings with Biden that he's cognitively a degenerate? And he said, no, I never noticed that. Anybody that says that, you know they're not telling the truth. I didn't notice he couldn't stand up. I didn't notice he can't walk. And I didn't notice he can't think and he couldn't talk. Other than that, he's doing quite well.
Congressman, what do you think? Should Wray resign?
I've always said Wray should resign long before he answered that question in Judiciary Committee yesterday. Look, if Christopher Wray is head of the FBI and he was telling the truth that he didn't notice anything wrong with Joe Biden, then he's not much of an investigator, and he shouldn't be leading our chief investigative agency in America. But more than likely, he was lying to Congress. I don't think that's the first time I've had to deal with Christopher Wray over the past year and a half and dealt with his obstruction and the dirty tricks that the FBI has played all along the way in our investigation. So I don't have a lot of confidence in Christopher Wray. But look, last night, Joe Biden was pushed out. He was pushed out because he has poor health. He didn't mention his health last night. So the question remains, okay, Mr. President, if it's not your health and you resigned because you wanted to pass the torch to the next generation, then you have failed in democracy here, because democracy is about people having input in who their candidate is. And if he was telling the truth, which we know he wasn't, Maria, this president has issues telling the truth. But the fact that he's like, it tries to imply that he didn't drop out because of health, that's even worse. That is a huge slap in the face of democracy to essentially close the nominating process and handpick your successor. Yeah. So either way, either Joe Biden wasn't able to serve, which I think is true, and he was pushed out, or they just slapped democracy in the face and handpicked their successor in a smoke-filled room.
Well, do you believe that he was promised anything if he were to step down? Because we know that the number of Democrats wanting him to drop out of the race was all the way up to 35 Democrats telling him he needs to step out because he's not going to be able to beat Trump. Did they promise him something? Miranda Devine has been on this program recently. I spoke with her also on Sunday, and she says they must have promised him either a pardon, that he can pardon his son, or money or something. Because you've been investigating this impeachment inquiry of President Biden. I want to know where that stands now that he's dropped out of the race. You sent a letter to the president back in March of 2024, and you write, the committee has accounted for more than $24 million that has flown from foreign sources to you, your family, and their business associates. The committee has identified no legitimate services to merit such lucrative payments. You've repeatedly denied playing any role in your family's business activities, but the committee has amassed evidence otherwise, including bank records and witness testimony, that wholly contradicts your position on these matters. You sent this letter to President Biden. The last time we spoke, you said he had not responded to that letter. Has that changed? And do you believe that the Democrats have promised him something in return for him stepping out of the race?
I definitely think they promised him that they would all give him tremendous accolades and the press would write glowing stories about him, and that's what's happened. The mainstream media complied with the request of whoever was in that smoke-filled room, and they've just been writing glorious reports of Joe Biden's tremendous legacy. I don't believe Joe Biden would believe Kamala Harris that she would pardon his son. I think that's one reason Joe Biden's going to remain in the presidency. I've always felt like he would pardon his son at the end of the day. And with respect to our investigation, I mean, we've disclosed all of the findings. The findings are horrible for the Biden family. Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, the president's son, the president's brother, they're going to need a pardon because the next Justice Cabinet is going to prosecute them for perjury, for Congress, and for lots of financial crimes. And, with respect to me, what do we do from this point on? Is Merrick Garland going to go after me for the abuse of a corpse if we keep on with Joe Biden? I mean, he has essentially stepped down, and I don't think the family's influence peddling anymore. So I think our investigation's been a success in providing the American people with the truth and preventing these crimes from happening anymore.
By the way, real quick, Congressman, there's also a glowing report on Kamala Harris's performance, and one of your colleagues said that she was never in charge of the border and she's not the border czar. Have you ever heard Joe Biden call her the border czar and in charge of the border?
Yes. Kamala Harris was the border czar, and she's failed miserably.
All right, Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. Chairman James Comer in D.C. We'll be right back.